Hello, rodeo fans. Welcome to episode 16 of the Short Round, the official podcast of the Canadian Professional Rodeo Association. I'm your host, Wacey Anderson. Once again, please be joined by my buddy, Clay Creasy. Clay, we are in the thick of Cowboy Christmas. And by thick of it, I mean we are deep in the heart of Cowboy Christmas. I'm currently on site at the Cowboy or at the Pinoca Stampede. You're fixing to make your way down here on Sunday, but we've got a whole slew of rodeo action to recap, not only from last weekend, but from the week that we're in right now and our Cowboy Christmas run.
Yeah, we are literally in this midst of beginnings, ends, middles of rodeos all over Canada, and it's quite the time to try and come up with a summary of things, but it's been some pretty wild action in a lot of places and pretty good rodeos happening everywhere. So it's good to look back on some of these.
Yeah, it's kind of a common theme that I keep going back to. I feel like the competition in Canada is as good as as good as it's ever been. We have a lot of Americans coming up competing. We have our Canadian guys doing their guys and gals doing their things. I think it's just we're in a really good spot, and it's like you can see it through the results from each weekend. There's big time rides. You look at Sundry where 88 and a half, I think, was split in fourth or fifth hole or sixth hole in the saddle bronc riding, in the bull riding in Sundry again, there's your 84 points and you're in the middle of the pack, whereas a lot of time you're winning rodeos. So I think we're in a really good spot, and it's mind boggling to try and keep up with everything from our perspective, but it's a such a fun time of year, and it's good to see some healthy competition all over the board.
Yeah, for sure. I watched back over on that Sundry Sunday performance just because I knew there was some big moments that happened there, and they're doing such a good job with that rodeo. I competed there quite a few times over the years. Actually won my first and I guess only steer riding buckle at a pro rodeo at Sundry many moons ago, and won the novice one time and competed there in the open. And it was always a good rodeo except for that time that it ended my pro career riding broncs. But just to watch that performance, they've that committee's done a tremendous job really ramping it up and not just becoming a tour rodeo, but becoming a really good tour rodeo. And again, the stock was amazing, the performance was incredible, and just that whole weekend, there's a ton of good rodeos that
Mhm.
happened and a lot of good action for sure.
Yeah, and I guess we don't want to seem like we're being too biased to Sundry, but I was boots on the ground there all weekend, and it's easy one to keep up with being on the Cowboy channel. But one thing I really wanted to shout out the Sundry committee for, and I didn't realize it going into it, was that they added 8,000 to the breakaway roping. $8,002, I guess, is the exact amount. But just a quick shout out for Sundry for kind of leading the way and really accepting or making breakaway roping a full on. I guess would it be the eighth major event? I guess once it gets to that point. But anyways, it was a pretty cool thing to see. And also in saying that, on Sunday, I think they had like four or five of the events. Their winners were up that day, which is like really,
Mhm.
it doesn't really happen that often. So from a fan perspective, and even committees, it's kind of cool to have your marquee championship Sunday with all your winners there was kind of cool.
Yeah, I can tell you from a committee person's perspective, being able to give the buckles away on a Sunday is a nice feeling. Having to track people down, it can get to be quite a show.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it, man. Well, Clay, let's jump into some of the highlights from the weekend. I think we got a bit different of a structure this time, so we're not just rambling on about each individual rodeo. But let's kick it off in the bareback riding. Ethan Mazarenko back to Sundry, 91 points. Yippee kibitz, had a huge weekend, big moving and shaking weekend for him. I was funny. I was talking to Jim Lawrence today, and he's like, dang, I can't believe that kid didn't make the CFR last year. He's so talented and so good, and it's just one of those deals not drawn the right way. But I think we can definitely count on seeing Ethan yeah, at the CFR this fall in Edmonton.
For sure, that was a big time ride. I mean, Yippee Kibitz, they've won Calgary on that horse. They've won a lot of big rodeos on that horse. Really, one that you always want to get that chance with, and he made the most out of it. Like he used that horse all day long and made an outstanding ride there. So it was really again a showdown Sunday moment that he really stepped up for.
And on the total weekend side, Clint Lay was one of the guys who stood out. So why don't you wrap up his weekend for us?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the biggest event for money added was Wainwright, and he went out and won that on True Grit, and ended up also picking up a check in Sundry. So he totaled up $5,300 for the weekend, which again goes a long ways to keeping him near the top of the standings.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's again, I think it was another again talking to Jimmy and we are later, I guess later on in this episode, we have Richmond Champion, the 2018 Canadian champion. I can't remember. I know it when we're interviewing him, so it's right there somewhere. But anyways, former Canadian champion bareback rider, and he's talked about how healthy the competition was. So it's good to see the bareback riding like going strong and having some good rides and good competitors heading down the road. That's gonna move us into the steer wrestling. I guess the biggest moment, Brandon Lay for the Guy Wiedek win. Also plays the Fort McLeod. I'm basically just going off the notes that you made, Clay. But couple big weekends for some Central Alberta steer wrestlers, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of wanted to try to look at what was the fast time. Again, some of the events it's hard to scale that, but in the Bulldog and Brennan had the fastest time of the weekend with that four flat there in High River, and again there was a lot of guys that spread money around. There wasn't really anybody at that weekend that had one like sweep of the weekend like we'll
Right.
see in one of the events coming up here. But overall, we saw Ty Livingston had a great showing in Wainwright there. Uh, Made 6,300 and some bucks, and again he's carrying that momentum forward here, and I'm sure we're going to see a good finish of the year for him, and a return to the CFR again here after not making it last year.
Yeah, it's got to be tough, like being in that position of you make it one year and then there's so much pressure, like almost like it's you think it would take the pressure off, but it almost adds more pressure making it once because you're like, oh, now I got to make it again, and like any rodeo person knows that you're gonna put most of that pressure on yourself. So it's good to see Ty finding some success. Ladies breakaway roping. If I'm reading this right, I'd have to look back on the results, but it looks like we have another tie in Bassano. Is that right?
Yeah, so we had the 2-2 was the fast time of the weekend, but that was Jesse Everett won Wainwright with a 2-2,
Yeah.
and then Bassano was split with Macy Eclair and Cashley Seitz there. And again, just rapid fire.
Another
We
tie,
didn't break the
man.
two, but we did we got
You go
close to it.
If you go back in the standings, anybody who's listening, you'll see there's an abnormal amount of ties in the breakaway roping. It's so impressive. So shout out to those gals. Um, okay, rolling through. One second, I just gotta try and get my thing back open here. Oh my God. Rolling through. Okay, this was another big moment from Sundry. And again, I know we're being a bit biased to Sundry, but there was a ton of big moments come out of that rodeo. Nick Patterson goes 90 points on Breaking Acres, the Calgary Stampede, for probably the biggest win of his career at this point. Clay, am I wrong in saying that? But huge big time ride for him. And you watched it back. It wasn't like the flashiest 90-point ride you'd ever see, but he worked his tail off to get to the whistle and get that horse covered.
Yeah, that Breaking Acres had a big jump out of there, and then a hard right corner that he
Yeah.
had to really bear down and get around. And then the horse just was good, and he rode him really well through that. But I think those judges were smart to give him some credit for getting by that corner, because it was tight, and there those acres horses, whether it's Redon Acres, Hell's Half Acres,
Hmm.
going back to Alabama Acres, you know when you got one of those, they're gonna buck. There is a ton of power and strength in those roan horses that come from Calgary, that bloodline, and it's just, yeah. Again, Nicholas, I'd mentioned him in our last show that we had done, because he had just pushed on the 90 with an
Yeah,
89
yeah.
and a half at Wildwood in what probably would have felt like as big a moment as he'd had previous to that, and then he just broke through that the next weekend. So it was just really cool to see.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was gonna bring that up. How I think they're so. I don't know if you listen to Spit and Chicklets at all, Clay, but I'm sure you're aware of the hockey their hockey podcast. But they anytime they have somebody on in an interview and that person does well shortly after the interview, they call it the Chicklets bump. I think we're gonna have to start doing the short round bump because after we had Shay on, she went and broke the record. Nick Patterson,
Yeah,
about him a little bit next. Now he's smashing 90s out. So then we're gonna trademark that deal and get some bumps going
I
on
like it.
this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on your biggest moments, you have Q Taylor pumping out. He ended up just over 6,000 on the weekend. He's a guy, man. He's kind of in that group that are just. I think we've seen big moments out of him, but I think there's more we can get more out of Q, and I think he's just starting to scratch that surface.
For sure. I mean, again, last year was just a heartbreaking end of the season for him. I know that last weekend he was in both that tour finale and in the rodeo in Edmonton, and it was really he was in a spot where he could make one or the other, but he wouldn't be able to make both. So he had to try and make a decision as to which one to pick, and it didn't end up working either way for him. I mean, to see a guy make over 100, almost 120,000 in the States and not make the NFR was just mind-boggling.
Right.
And again, like he's just a young guy that, yeah, he's just he's gonna get it all figured out, and he's gonna be really tough to beat. There's just a lot of talent and ability there.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's gonna take us to the tie down roping. So I guess Wainwright had a different structure this year because they didn't have an actual short go, but there still was a two-head average for the timed event. So Lucas Potter walked away with just almost 5 grand from Wainwright after winning a round and the average. And then our old familiar friend Shane Hanchey won High River and Sundry for nearly 6 grand. So kind of like you say, not really anybody sweeping the weekend, but some big dollars being handed out in the tie down roping.
For sure, yeah, and you know Wainwright, they've always kind of stuck with that like first round slack where everybody's there runs one,
Hmm.
right? And that's always been kind of a cool feature. And again, then your second go is just the end of your weekend. And again, with as many rodeos as there are, to try and circle back for that short round again really would have made it tricky. But again, these guys still left with a lot of money, so I
Yeah.
don't think the contestants are too sad about that. But yeah, Shane Hanchey again. Yeah, that guy backs in the corner, and again, those are two pretty good sized rodeos to pick to win. I mean, that's good money to leave with. And I
And
saw he got a spotlight on the Cowboy Channel's athletes of the week there too. So they're paying attention. The money guys win up here still pays the same down there,
mm.
and yeah, you're seeing a lot of the results that big wins up here are translating to the PRCA standings as well.
It's nice to have that like those guys back. Like Shane kind of hadn't rodeoed a bunch in Canada over the last couple of years. Even a guy like Richmond, he hasn't really rodeoed up in Canada as much the last few years. But bringing that like extra level of competition back has just made it so much better as a fan, as a excuse me. I'm sure from like a contestant perspective, it's like made it that much better. Just having that tough competition makes you elevate your game. So it's so great to have all these guys kind of back in the fold and going hard up in Canada. So.
For
Um,
sure. I don't know if you heard that Jordan Spears today when they were interviewing him in Pinoca, not
and
only
I
talking
missed it
about,
because it was raining so hard.
oh, yeah, yeah, but it was really cool to hear. And again, depending on your perspective, if you're a Canadian bull rider, maybe you're not as happy to hear this, but a guy like Jordan Spears coming up here for one of his first attempts, but noticing not just that he wants to come to Pinoca, but that he wants to try and make the CFR.
Mm-hmm.
So again, seeing guys making that their goal and entering more of these rodeos, good competition makes everybody ride up,
Hmm.
and it's good to see. So
Yeah, definitely some exciting times, man. Okay, the barrel racing. I think this is probably I would classify this as the biggest moment from the weekend. Texan cowgirl Abby Phillips came up and pretty much sweep the board. One Wainwright, one Sundry, and placed in High River for a little over 12 grand in her pocket. And I had no idea who she was heading into Sundry, and I like that's my fault for not doing my homework and no disrespect to Abby, but she's gonna be a force to be reckoned with on both sides of the border this year.
I can second that. Kind of like who is this? I had to do a lot of digging and stuff, and yeah, she's a Texas cowgirl that I was reading a bit about it. Unfortunately, last summer had a tragic loss of a kind of that horse of that hard horse, right? Looked like it was a long time horse of hers that she'd rodeoed on and been everywhere with. and ended up with a new one. Was a little confusing. Her new horse's name is Andy Anderson, so I thought that was a traveling partner for a little while looking at results. But yeah, the two of them have just really clicked. Did well at their Texas Circuit finals. Have done well at the Winter Rodeo. She's sitting third in the world right now, and
That's
just
why I feel like
somebody
such a
who's
dummy, dude.
yeah, she's really just somebody that again hasn't been a name in the past, but definitely seems like is going to be. And again, come up here and take home over 12,000 is just yeah. I couldn't come up with something as a bigger moment than that because again, she won the two tour rodeos and on a standard pattern to run a 17-3 at both of them is pretty tough. So yeah, good
Yeah,
honor.
impressive. Yeah, so watch out for Abby. He's gonna be tough to beat. Okay, the team roping. We got Team McLeod, Sid Spore. That's the number one team in the country right now. They won Wainwright with a time of 4-5, and then Trey Goulet, Joey Romo the second, tied with Brady Trine and Calgary Smith, the usual suspects in the team open. But yeah, it was a tough weekend at team open, especially in Sundry. There were some long times, tough pen of steers, fresh steers. And yeah, Clay, why don't you wrap up? I see you have a little tidbit, little hot nugget of info on the team up in here in your second column of our notes for the show this afternoon or this evening.
Yeah, so again, I mean it can be tough to go through and try and figure out who's got the most money won in four rodeos in any event. And luckily it just kind of had a little blurb that popped up from the around the Saddlehorn Facebook page that I'm now following to be that much more in the loop on the team roping. But they had all the earnings from the weekend and Levi Simpson and Logan Cullen there had placed at all four rodeos there last weekend and ended up taking home over 6,000 each. Again, the McLeod brothers are both really picking away at things, and there's a lot of teams that are doing well in Canada, and some guys that went down to Reno to some of those ropings that are going on down there and the rodeo and are making some money on both sides of the line right now. So it's good to see those guys roping sharp.
Well, and that's going to bring us to the bull riding. So, two-time Canadian Pro Rodeo champion and two-time PBR champion Dakota Butter found his stride in Sundry with an 89.5 point ride. Corey Robbins picked up the win on High River. Lonnie Phillips was the only ride in Bassano, and then Aussie Callum Miller won Wainwright. There's some good bull rides across the board there, but one guy I'm gonna call my shot here. That's gonna heat up in the next few weeks. Who usually does this time of year is Dakota Butter. He's getting what he that was a big ride he made in Sundry, and when Dakota gets rolling, he's a tough train to stop on the tracks.
Oh, for sure. He's been at this for a long time and he's definitely a tough one to beat. And again, that Callum Miller, he's sticky. I was today I was getting an oil change on a truck and watching the one PBR and geez, that bull he was getting on bailed in the chute just as it was opening two or three times. And I mean he sat down and got that
Um,
sorted out. It was there's cowboy in there for sure.
Dude, I know that I said we'd leave Fort McLeod to the second half, but I just want to bring up this one thing before we send it to our interview. But if you go to Callum Miller's Instagram page and you watch his ride from Fort McLeod this weekend where he was 84.5 points, that is the rankest 84.5 point ride you'll ever see in your life. I bet the farm on it. It is that was a hell of a bull ride. So I just wanted to give Callum a shout out because I'm a big fan of his. He's such a nice guy and he tries his butt off every time. But I just wanted to say that is the rankest 84.5 point bull ride you'll ever see. So, anyways, Clay, we'll leave it at that. That's kind of your Cole's notes from the past weekend of rodeo. If you want to check back and see the full results or check on anything you missed or call us out for messing anything up, head to Pro Rodeo Canada website. Everything you need to find will be there. The new and improved Pro Rodeo Canada website. I hope everybody's been enjoying that changeover. But anyways, I'm going to throw it to our interview. This is a chance to sit down with Richie Champion, former Canadian champion saddle bronc rider and NFR bronc rider, American champion. Everybody knows who Richie is. But yeah, enjoy it. We'll catch you right after this. Welcome back to the Short Round Podcast. I'm stoked to be joined by the 2018 Canadian Bareback Riding Champion, Richie Champion. What's going on, man? Thanks for letting us use your humble abode, a Cowboy Christmas podcast
Thanks for
recording.
coming. Thanks for breaking her in. I told Paige, like, it's a big day we call it the motorhome joy. And I was like, big day for Joy today. We're good.
First podcast
Yeah,
episode.
first podcast. So
And you had your first like family road trip up to the Lawrence Ranch this summer. Joy's hitting all the stops.
getting some miles. Yeah, we went California to Cloverdale. Well, we did stop at home to like grab some fresh underwear and stuff, but like,
Yeah.
really we didn't even stay the night. Just jumped right back in it and went to the ranch and hung out with Jimmy and bucked some horses. And
That's awesome.
no, it's been a really fun way. I guess a fun change in my
Yeah, no
career and
doubt,
life.
eh?
You know.
Well, how like that was gonna be my question is like, what's it like bringing your family on the road to these big like it's kind of the next step in your career, hey?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I think me and Paige are there's no easy way.
Mhm.
I guess you know it's either I'm out here rodeoing and I'm missing everything, or I might have to ride a bareback and then change a diaper within 30 minutes of each other. You know, and that's I
Take
don't
your
know.
victory lap and change a
I'll
diaper.
take that any day.
It's got to be cool to again, like I said, sharing those moments and as your son gets older and starts to appreciate what you do and like being able to share like coming to a Pinoca and him seeing the lights and the sounds and then you being able to make a rabbit. I know it's a lot. I've seen like Aaron Roy talk about a lot of guys that's the next step with their having their kids like showing them like, hey, I actually was good at this at one point rather than going to the rodeo. I'm like, hey, Dad used to do this.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's like in the rough stock riding. I feel like it's not as prominent.
No,
Like
no.
to take the family with you, and it's like the steer wrestlers and team ropers. They've all done it forever.
Forever, yeah.
Like why not?
Yeah, well, you look at Curtis Cassidy. He's made the CFR like 25 times. It's like you have like two families in that time.
Well, it's like, man, we're at the point in our careers where like we're established, and this is our job. But like, how cool that it's like my career's given me the opportunity to do this and get to bring them with me, and wish they were here, honestly, right now. But like, it's yeah, no, it's super cool.
Well, like the next thing I want to move to is kind of you're back, you're healthy again, you're feeling good, and you're back rodeoing in Canada. We're so stoked to have you back. You and I had a good visit in Sundre a couple weeks ago, but what's it like being back up here, seeing everybody? I know it's great, like having your father-in-law sitting here, like just parked chucked right off the camper, and just like I'm sure you've made some really good friendships along the way. How's it? It's been nice to see everybody again.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's been since 2019 that I've been up here, and definitely remembering very fast why I loved rodeoing up here. It's been really fun. We're just gonna kind of bump around to what makes sense this year, but next year I think it'd just be silly not to push for it. And I always feel like I ride best when I'm happy and having fun, and I don't have any more fun than when I'm up here. So no, it's been good. And yeah, I get to spend time with Jimmy, and it feels tighter, like more of a family affair up here, and get to see old faces. It's been a while, and man, it's just been enjoying it.
Well, it's cool. I like since I've started working with pro rodeo and just seeing how it's evolved in the year and a bit I've worked with them, like all these rodeos are like pushing to add more money for you guys, and it's like you can make a pretty good like amount of money out of Canada, especially pushing for the NFR.
100%. It's we were talking about Oren earlier. Like, yes, he's Canadian, so he doesn't really have a choice. But if you watch, just like it's such a making the CFR is such an accomplishment. But if you make the CFR and you rodeo a little bit down south, there's a good chance you go to the other one after that. And that's like it's so supplemental. And it's fun to see all these kids, these rookies that from down south that are like coming we're entered in Pinoco, we're going here, and you're like, that's awesome. That like when we look at a PSN now, it's like, no, we're going to Wainwright and Sundre, not whatever down south. Like it's just the rodeos are just getting so much better everywhere, and the horsepower to go with it.
Yeah, that was even the next thing is like that you tie in the rodeos, adding more money, like Pinoca, for example, 60,000 Pinoca, that's right up there with any big rodeo in the world. And then you got the horsepower you can get on here, that just makes it that much better.
Exactly. I mean, Sundre, there's like 10th round NFR horses in there, and I had a horse I'd had at the CFR. It's
Well, that was a tough bareback ride. And I think you were what, 85, and
85 and I
you're
won 10th. I think.
yeah, like man, like 91 to win it, and then
Yeah.
there's like a few like 88s and some really
just
big rides, and it's awesome to see that level of
yeah,
competition.
they're not making those scores up. Like it
No,
was
no,
just a
it's
good,
legit.
like a really good bareback riding,
Yeah.
which is so fun. Like that's why you do it. You want to be like, there's nothing better than being in that perf. Even if you're the guy that's 86 and you're 8th,
Yeah, yeah.
like if you were in that energy, like so
Oh,
much
you could
fun.
feel
That's
it
why
in
we
the
do it.
arena, man,
Yeah.
that day. Like after Ethan was 91, like you could just feel it. Everything was buzzing. Like
Yeah.
like Dallas Hay was 80. Like, that was the best ride I've ever seen Dallas
Yeah,
make, and he
same.
looked awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see
Yeah.
that. Again, that level of competition is awesome. When you look across the board in the rough stock and sundry, it was 91 to win the bareback, 90 to win the saddle bronc, and 89 and a half to win the bull riding. Like that's right up
I
against.
think you were like 88 and 3/4 was like 4th in the bronc
Yeah,
riding.
that's crazy,
But that's so good. Like,
yeah. Well, that's
but you don't do that you can't do that without the animals.
No,
and
no.
that's like, but there's so many good horses up here, and they just, I don't know what it is. They just keep getting better and better. Like,
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that whole deal, and yeah, it's good that we're attracting like top. Like we had Tanner Ross here yesterday. Like obviously you've been one of the top bareback riders in the world your whole career.
Yeah.
It's like having somebody attest to that horsepower. It's pretty cool. But I guess shifting towards your career, you went through some injury trouble. Would have been 19, 20. Would have been
20, 22. I sat out.
22. You sat out. So
kind of wasn't real happy with things like 19, 20, 21, or really, I guess from 2020, I think it kind of is where like.
Were you just rodeoing banged up, or
just, I guess, wasn't riding like I know I can, and really it took sitting out a year to like, I was getting pretty bitter about the time that I ended up going and getting my neck looked at, and I was just frustrated. It wasn't like, in my mind I should be winning, they should be paying me, and was blind enough that I couldn't see that I wasn't riding like I can, and went back and watched, sitting there with a year of time on my hands, watching videos, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm lucky they paid me at all.
At all, yeah.
Like I was riding terrible, but it was all compensation for my neck. Like I could see where my body just slowly started changing to protect it while I was riding, and now it's like just. Like last year was a bit of learning to let go of that protection.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Got to trust it's healed. And this year is just, I just feel better than ever.
You can see it in your riding, man. Like you're like you hit horses hard. Like I've known that like from watching you all this time, and like watching you in sundry. Like you got that dog back. Excuse my language.
I feel like it. It might be a Chihuahua, but I got him.
Oh, that's good, man. I just had a random brain thought. I hope that I didn't fuck this up. Oh, I got time. Okay, we're good.
Golden.
22 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, I still got time. Sorry, I'll cut this all out. But
oh no, leave it in.
No, that part. I forgot to format my memory card, and it's like tight on like space. I was like, fuck, I don't want to lose all this stuff.
Gotcha.
Anyways, okay. Hopefully the board doesn't get mad at me for dropping an F-bomb.
I think you'll be fine.
Okay, back to business. So you get back to being healthy again. You're feeling good, and was it hard getting your mind back where you needed it to be? Or like obviously, I think you have like comparative across the board. You have like one of the best support systems in rodeo with Paige, and like Jimmy was a dog back in his day, and just like the people you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with champions. So did you find it was easy or hard to kind of get back to that winning mentality?
I wouldn't say it wasn't easy, but it wasn't like I enjoyed the fact that I had to work at it again.
Yeah.
I guess. Like it was, I don't know. I kind of think on it all the time. Like right now it's honestly, I was in my first rodeo, one of my first rodeos back was Rapid City, and I sit down there and there was 2 kids that had been to my schools before, and then JB Mooney. The only people I knew in the locker room, and I called Paige afterwards, and she's like, how'd it go? I was like, it was fun. Like, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Horses could have been better, but that's fine. I need to make some friends. She's like, what? And I'm like, I didn't know anybody. Like I was taped up, and I was like, didn't like, just like no one to talk to. So I pull up my phone and I'm watching the short round to Fort Worth, and I'm like, I'm watch at least watch my friends,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, there's a whole new batch of like it's a shift in generation here.
Changing of the guard a little bit.
Yeah,
Hey?
so it's like, man, I got to get to know these guys, and after a year of knowing them, it's way more fun now than it was before. But
have you found it like reinvigorating or like it like helped flip a switch, like being around the younger guys a little bit and like helping like motivate you more? I've talked to a few guys about this and they mentioned that's a big thing, like getting with the younger crowd.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I got to deal with Keenan Hayes. If he beats me in Montana, I owe him a steak. If I beat him in Colorado, he owes me a steak. And like,
Awesome.
it's just like that.
Yeah.
No, they're super fun guys and they ride great. Like, that's the thing. I know they're
Keenan
young.
Hayes is a bad dude, man.
Yeah, Cooper Cook,
oh my God,
Dean Thompson. Like, they're just we could fill this whole podcast with bareback rider names. These younger guys like Weston Timmerman. He's up, like Sam Peterson. These kids are just they're studs.
Yeah.
You know, and it just makes you like, yeah.
You have no choice but to be better.
No choice. Or you have two choices.
Yeah.
Be done.
Yeah.
Or say goodbye or
get in it.
Get in it.
Dang. That's cool, man.
It's fun.
And then so who are some of the guys you're traveling with these days? Who's your new friend group that you're
well, I got Caleb Bennett.
Oh yeah, that's an OG.
Yeah, yeah. The old dog. So him, and then we're packing not a rookie, Trevor McAllister. He's rodeoed for a really long time, just always stayed kind of in Montana, but he really wants to go this year, and he's I think his first 3 at Canadian horses.
Oh yeah.
Were Snapchat. I don't know what the other one was, and then One More Reason.
Oh my gosh.
Of Wayne's and like Bucky.
Yeah.
Bucky, and he went ahead and came up and Snapchat got him down, but he spurred One More Reason the other day. Like he's hungry.
Yeah,
and,
awesome.
That's fun to have around too.
Yeah,
you know, and like we've showed up to I don't know how many times I've been to Pinoca or these other rodeos, and it's always great to be back, but seeing somebody see a place for the first time is pretty fun too. Like you can kind of feed off that energy. You can see it.
I ran into Bo Voku and another young guy. I think Bo's from Montana. Anyways, he was riding bulls and stuff, but it was their first time up here in Pinoca, and you seen them talk about it, and their eyes light up about like the horses and the what it is. Like it's so cool to have like as a Canadian and like you're basically an honorary Canadian at this point. You got your green card, right? So it's like it's exciting just to hear people talk about that and see the excitement, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. One thing you and I have been talking about the last couple of weeks quite a bit is on the sponsorship side. Yeah. You obviously have like a good group of sponsors and you're really tight with them, but you have a newer sponsor, Turtle Box, and you were talking about how this is the first time it's felt like you can contribute to the growth of the company and you feel like you have a role in that. Talk a bit about that, because I know there's probably a lot of rodeo contestants who feel the same way, or maybe there's some sponsors like trying to find ways to engage with their athletes, but kind of explain that through your perspective.
Yeah, I think like early on in my career it was just cool to have a patch on your shirt,
100%.
Like, some free jeans or whatever. And which it is. That's awesome. That's, every little bit helps. And it's sometimes you get in with these bigger companies and you really just feel like kind of like, I want to win because that's how I represent. That's how I represent you. And now I feel like with social media being as big as it is, it really gives us an opportunity that we do get to directly contribute to these companies. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, I want to love the product and love the people that own it and are running it, and then let my fans know that I really like, because I do use this stuff. Like I'm not going to take on something that I'm not like. I'm not going to take on a hair product when it's all falling out. Like
you gotta align, right? Like that's a big thing, and you can see it. Like you can see the guys' social media page, and this is from me, like from a social media professional perspective. You can see the guys who like truly care about the brands they represent and like they want to like put out their best foot forward with that, like in your content, and there's so many other people out there who are doing a good job, and I just find it fascinating how that's evolved over the last couple of years. Even from a media perspective, like how willing, even like doing this right now, like how more willing guys are and girls to take part in like fun social media videos or podcast interviews. It's such a huge thing, and it's cool because we want to share your stories. You guys are cool people, and it helps grow your brand ultimately.
Well, it used to be like just do good when the camera's on you and you get actual TV time, which is I mean, even at the NFR, how many seconds do you actually see my face? Like,
Yeah.
it's that fast.
You're nodding your head by the time they say your name.
Like we run 15 bareback horses in like 13 minutes. Like
That's crazy.
Unless you win the round, you're not getting that
Nothing,
TV time, you know?
Yeah.
And now it's like, but it's fun to have companies that when you sign the contract or whatever and you build your relationship with them and then they go, and you ask them what they want from you, and then they say, be a team player. Like, build us, we'll build you. Like, let's go. Like, we're a team, and that's the company I want to have on my shirt. You know,
100%.
that's the company I want to put out on my social media and whose products I'm going to use day in, day out. So yeah, it's just getting more fun with social media
and what you can
giving
do
us
with
all
it, right? There's so many
exactly.
different ways, and and even the reach beyond, just like beyond like TV, because TV can only reach a certain amount of people, and it's usually rodeo people just watching it. But social media, you can reach people all over the world, all over North America. Like, it's crazy that amount of eyes you can get on you.
Don't
and
judge
your
me on
people.
my song choices. I do those so that it ends up in front of like, whatever song's trending.
You gotta hit it, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and it's funny because like I'm the same way. It's like, I hate this song so much, but you gotta use
it's kind of
it.
catchy.
But it gets me every damn time. It's like songs on the radio, dude. Yeah. But kind of probably the next step in your career is like giving back. And one of those ways that a lot of rodeo guys get back is rodeo schools. You've done a few of those. What's that journey been like, that process? And I think even having Paige as a resource probably helps out. Like, she can help you kind of tag along in that type of thing.
When I started, I was living in Texas. I just got on my first few bareback horses, and I went to 3 schools in 6 months, and all of them were free. Like,
wow,
it was just like Pete Carr wanted to buck colts, Sammy Andrew wanted to buck colts, Chris Harris was coaching here, you know, like Matt Bright and these other guys at the other ones, and it's like Clint Cannon's school that he really founded down there in Texas, and like to have that opportunity to just not have to pay an entry fee to learn and to be able to get on as many as you want and then have those kind of guys there to teach you, like that was it. Yeah, it gave me my start, and it was a huge part of it. And so ever since then, I've just been always down to do a school. Like, I know what difference it can make. Maybe not for everybody, but for one kid or 2 kids, like, great opportunity.
100%.
And like you want to give those guys your time. And so I think me and Caleb have a school. We do a Sparky Dreesen in Miles City. We've done that for 4 years, 5 years now, and the last, I think, 3 years, Jimmy's put on a school, with Primetime Rodeo, and we do that just right there in Kennedy, so we get to go see the family and then buck a bunch of his. And
well, that's cool too, because you get like a cool group of guys. Oren Camp comes through sometimes. Like, you get some heavy hitters in that regard, just in like some small towns in Saskatchewan. Exactly. It's pretty neat.
Oren all-nighted it from Buffalo Lake to come to my school.
That's a classic Oren Larson move, man.
I show up and I've got coffee and Paige's mom cooked him breakfast, so I got a plate of food for him, and I go over, and there is no joke, probably a foot from the front of his truck to the front of his camper. I was like, that's weird. Like, okay. And so he wakes up and, Oren, your camper slid back. It'll be fine. Just had 2 hours of sleep. I was like, man. Oh my gosh, man.
Have you found, or did you find, or was it hard to find your like teaching legs, like how to explain or like show people what to do? Even for me, like, it's funny because I always think I'd be a good teacher, but like I try to explain stuff to people and I try to do it like the way I understand it, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's tough, but it's one of my favorite things for what it, honestly, on a selfish note, what it does for you by you constantly talking about it. It just reinstills all of those basics back in you. But it's taken a while, and like it's fun to coach with other guys and see how, because we all do the same thing, right? Yeah. We all explain it different. But that's also really good because these kids, everyone learns different. And like I might say one thing and it doesn't land, and Oren might say the same thing a different way. Boom, they're like right in there. So like that is like, I love doing schools with more guys.
You kind of need it, right? It's like teaching in school, like a kid's learn different.
I learn stuff when I do the schools. Like Caleb teach still, like
to this day.
Like I'll go to school and be like,
since
Caleb, since when? But really,
come on,
no.
Man. What's
you didn't want to tell me this a decade ago?
What's an example of one of those things? Like what? Just like
oh, I mean, just little tricks and stuff that like
Mhm.
he might know, or like it's part of his program, like tiny stuff, but
Mhm.
it's like, oh,
Damn.
yeah,
But the smallest thing can make such a difference,
yeah,
especially for you guys. Like I feel like bareback rider is like one of the most meticulous guys about your
we're
gear.
splitting hairs,
Yeah,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, or what did Oren was, we were doing shoot procedure, and so he's getting these guys just on a saddle horse in the buck and shoot, teaching them how it goes, and that's where you kind of see where like the way I think about it and Oren thinks about it like are a bit different, and he's rule number one, and I was like, go ahead. He's like, neck rope, always have a neck rope,
Ye-
and I was like, I I just
Honestly,
assume it's going to be there, but
it just
but
comes out of thin air.
teaching that to those
Hmm.
like we go to a pro rodeo,
There's somebody
everything's
doing
tied
it.
in,
Yes,
everything's tied
yes.
in. These guys might go to an amateur rodeo and there might not be a neck rope, so
Hmm.
put one in your gear bag and make somebody run it.
Dang,
You know what I mean? Like save you and your equipment and that horse. Like
that's a that's that blew my mind.
yeah,
Like,
see what
you
I mean?
think about it,
Even
right?
that, I'm like, yeah, of course a neck rope, Oren.
Oh.
But you think about who you're talking to and what you're doing, you're
Hmm.
like, yeah, no, that's a great thing to teach them because
Dang.
they don't know. We take it for granted.
So how many? So where would you say the state of bareback riding is in? Like I know at one point it was looking pretty grim. I would say
Yeah,
like not a lot of like young guys
I
taking it
called
up.
those my golden days, Wacey.
But I mean, and we kind of touched on it earlier. Like, there's a lot of good young guys going. Even up in Canada, we got like Ethan
Oh
Mazarenko,
yeah,
Chet Dietz is going to be
yeah.
a dog, but
Dallas Hayes coming
Dallas
on.
Hay,
Yeah,
another guy too. Straubs Jones, another
yeah.
guy who's really good. But what would you like? Do you think it's in a good state? Is it on the up and up, or where? Like, what's the overall state of the union for the bareback riders?
Booming,
Booming.
booming.
Business
Yeah,
is booming.
I think
What's
like
led to that resurgence? I guess.
well, that's like I know like when I won the American, that was a big brought in like the Clayton Bigelows and
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
like those guys were like, oh yeah,
We can
I'm
do
gonna do
this.
some of that.
Yeah.
Uh, and then it's just got to be the amount of one you have the NFR junior NFR,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't like it at all.
Really?
I well from the start, no way. Where do you think Keenan Hayes, Cooper Cook, Bradley Miller, all these kids came from?
Damn.
Those kids have been on hundreds of ponies, but they've been doing
But they're.
this for so long already
Hmm.
that when they show up, game on,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And I feel like we've seen the tour, like the tour rodeos in Canada, always growing.
Hmm.
There's the Cowboy Channel Canada, the Cowgirl Channel. Like there's just
Everything.
social media, everything. These guys have just watched bareback riding at so many
Hmm.
different levels all the time that it's no, and they want to do it. It's
Hmm.
like they're
That's the biggest thing.
hungry.
When you talk about Kean Hayes and what he did last year, like that foundation from the junior FR, he kicked everybody's ass all year,
Yeah,
and like with authority. He didn't
yeah.
like he was like beating 90 everywhere, like thumping all the good best horses.
He reminds me all the time, like to myself, that I'm just like, you have to love it that much. You have
Hmm.
to be the guy that wants to jump in the rig and help your buddies drive, even though you're not entered, and pull the all night drive for them to get them there so they get some rest, and then go, I feel pretty good. I'll go walk up and see if they got a spot and get on somebody's turnout. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? While wearing the gold buckle that you got
Oh, it's
last year,
crazy, man.
like that. But that's what it
That's what it
takes.
takes, 100%.
That fires me up.
What's it gonna take to beat him this year? You think he's got a good start? And I mean, I know it's like less of a competition between you guys, but like, what's it gonna take to for you to elevate to that level?
Well, I'm gonna cut his latigos or something probably. No, just like that for me, watching him do that, like, and
Mhm.
him tell the stories, like walking up places and winning the rodeo on people what people said no to.
Dang.
That fires me up. That's like in my mind, I'm like, okay, whenever I stop wanting it that bad,
Mhm.
that's probably about time to hang it up. But like, I still like it that much.
Yeah.
You know, I just needed. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
it's crazy.
and then we talked about it earlier too of the like reigniting that fire and seeing a guy like that would get your motor running.
Well, then
Um,
there's so much money to win, and those guys take a lot of it, and I don't want to make it easy on them. You know.
yeah. Well, and how strategic have you become with your rodeo, like going where you're going, where you had like we had a good conversation. I really like that conversation in Sundry talking about how like and you didn't really know your horse in Reno, not really worth the drive because there's already some big scores on the board. So how often are you keeping a pulse on what's going on, where you got to go, what you're getting on that type of stuff?
it's such a different game. Like the bronc riding, everybody goes and gets on everything. And I always like it's just gotten to the point where everything's just more expensive now. Like
that it's crazy. Like and the travel expenses, like what? It's going to be like 30-40% higher from when you started.
100%.
Hey? Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. But I think we have less numbers in Canada and high numbers of good horses. So most of us are going to go try what we get. Down south, some rodeos, like, you get 70 entries. There's not 70 good horses.
No, yeah.
Like, not that they're bad horses, but they're just not those, you know where the winners are at. And you either got them or you don't. And it's tough when you're sitting in Sundry and you know how much Reno's going to pay. And if you don't have them, is it worth flying down there and back here twice and 4,000 in travel when I haven't won a check at Reno since 2014? You know, like, I don't know. Like, make sense. Well, you always enter it because you always want to give yourself that chance. Yeah. But you do have to be smart. And there's nothing wrong with going. Like, whatever you feel like you need to do, like, go. But, like, I've just gotten older and I know how it works. And anytime I've tried to force it, just never happens.
Well, so that comes with that experience, right? Yeah. Like you need to be able to draw that line, but
and make those business decisions. 100%. You know, that's for longevity. Like I've had thankfully a really long, great career, and I probably attribute a lot to those tougher decisions where the winner in you doesn't want to say, I'm not going.
It's such a contradicting like train of thought, hey? Like it's so tough.
I spend a lot of time between the ears doing that one. That's and you always just whatever one you're not going to second guess is the one you go with.
Right.
Like and the second you think you're going to second guess, just shut up, go do something. Like,
well, that's like kind of like like the business of winning, right? Like it's such a fine tightrope to walk, but once you figure out how to walk it, that's where you see the guys who are successful, right? Yeah. And even with PRC, like in the PRC, you have your capped rodeo count, so it's like you kind of got to there's so many. You could go to your 100 rodeos from the first part of June to whatever. It's probably impossible. You could like just the way the schedule.
Well, it's like Caleb. Caleb is a wizard.
Yeah.
With the PSN, like that guy. Like there's a few guys that are just they know how to enter. They know what day to be where and how we're going to travel it. And like here we are coming up on the 4th of July and we are entered in at least 2 rodeos a day for like 6 days straight. And I'm like, Caleb, what are we just going to just pick the best one? And he's like, oh, no, we're going off. I've already got this figured out. Don't you worry about it. Stop asking questions. I'll see you in Pinoca. And I'm like, okay. And Paige is like, what are you guys doing? And I was like, well, here's where we're entered. Well, how are you going to do that? And I was like, I still don't know. But he'll tell me.
He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you'll just wake up in the next town or the next place. Yeah. But I want to talk about Paige and how pivotal she's become in like obviously your life and your career. Like I've known Paige since we were kids, and it's cool to see the trajectory that she's went on, the success that she's had outside of rodeo.
Yeah.
But just talk a bit about Paige and you guys' little family.
Well, she's a stud. You know that. Like it's one, but I think we've both really enjoyed seeing each other as parents now. And it's fun and just infinitely more difficult having a child and she's a go-getter.
Oh man.
Like
she's dog.
There's no asking her to be a stay-at-home mom.
No.
Like she might stay at home, but she's going to be finding a way to be grinding all day long. And that's been a tough but fun balance to kind of figure out because she kicks ass. Like she's like the way she thinks about stuff and like if she even catches me, like I'm like, oh, not going to do this one. And she's like, really? Did you just feel that way, or do you want to think about it and talk about it for a second? And I'm like, okay, coach me up. Let's go. And then I'm gonna go and win. Here we go. Yeah. But it's like she has such a strong mental game, like just in life. And like obviously why she went to the Olympics and like was able to persevere and do the things she did. And now it's just like watching her like in her coaching and like helping people, like some rodeo athletes, some business people, and it's like it's such a cool I don't take it for granted because I know how lucky I am to have that sounding board all the time. And like sometimes it's like, okay, I need you to light me up. Like let me have it. And sometimes she knows when like to not coach me, you know, when I've just got to figure it out. And no, it's she's a beast.
It's almost like a little like kind of like secret weapon for you though, right?
Yeah.
Like not a lot of guys have that access,
No.
and to have like obviously like the relationship you guys have together and what she brings to the table, it's probably would have been something big that helped you get back to this level, right?
Yeah, I'll never forget. We were just dating, and I was trying to. I think I started rodeoing like in May in 2016, and I was doing my own thing, and I was winning, and I was gonna make the NFR. Like, got it made, and coming in 13th, but like late start, and the whole year she was like, "Well, we can," and I'm like, "Nope, I'm doing. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good." And I'm standing there at the NFR about to get on, and I was thinking exactly what she had been kind of just in conversation. Well,
Right.
she wasn't even coaching.
She's like
She was just
subconsciously
laying
coaching. Yeah.
And I was standing there, and I was like, "Oh, that little witch! She got in there. She got in there." And then ever since then, it's like I could not tell you how I thought beforehand. Like,
oh man, that's awesome.
And like, not always easy, like sometimes,
No.
but it's like I have so many tools in this tool bag that she's given me for whatever comes my way. Like, she's
that's awesome.
I owe her a ton.
Oh, she's good, man. So I really want to give her a little shout out while we're talking to her.
Sure.
She's a badass.
Paige Lawrence Coaching.
Hit her up. Look her up. LinkedIn. So I'll talk about some of your favorite moments in Pro Rodeo Canada. I know, like we've kind of bounced all over the board, but you've had some really big moments in your career, some big rides. But what are some of those things that stand out to you?
Virgil.
What's the secret to Virgil? I think that let's talk about that instead, because we saw Rocker get on Tuesday. He had a tough time. Oren's a guy who's had struggles with Virgil in the past. Like there's he's got a trick to him, and what does it take to conquer the gray beast?
You want a happy Virgil.
Really?
If Virgil,
so how do you know if he's happy?
He's got his head up and he's like sniffing around and licking his lips. When he comes to have a hard day, he's mad. Like he's sitting in there and he's got his neck curled and you can see him like clenching his jaw. Ooh. And his eye looks different. I'm like, ooh,
look out, boys.
Okay, you're gonna want to bear down with that. I've been really lucky that he's been pretty nice every time I've had him.
Yeah.
But, and he wants to play as hard as you do. Is what I always see. Like if you start him the right way, he's gonna play with you. If something doesn't go right, like in that first 2 seconds, it's not going to get any easier.
You can see that Tuesday's a perfect example of that. Like Rocker got a little bit behind.
And I'll say that on outside. When you put him inside, I don't know.
Really? Like indoor versus outdoor?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a phenomenal outdoor horse, and he's a phenomenal indoor horse. He's just different. Like
you must be like just see like it's a bit more confined. Like when Pinocchio probably gets out there and he sees a big wide open, it's like, here we go, boys.
Well, that's what Rock asked me the other. He's like, what's Virgil like here? I was like, he's different. Like he's always different. Me and Caleb both have a picture where he's like sunfished.
Yeah.
Like he always throws an empty roll in there and like I don't know. I love that.
He's
horse.
Amazing, man. It's cool.
To be able to get him here and then to be able to pull him out of the hat twice in Calgary was awesome. And, no, I think I've had a lot of small ones up here, like winning Grand Prairie on this is I think the first horse of Jimmy's I ever got.
Was it Mucho?
On. No, One More Reason.
Oh, One More Reason. Oh.
So I tell this horse and I'm like, hey, what is this? And he was pretty young at the time.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's like, he bucks. Like he's kind of the real deal. I was like, okay. So I show up there and I'm like, obviously, like, not gonna get embarrassed.
Oh, my father-in-law's horse.
It was my girlfriend's dad at the time,
you know. Yeah, you had to almost had to prove yourself.
Exactly. To them, rite of passage. Get on this big bay. I ended up winning the rodeo, and like awesome. Jimmy broke his toe because he held onto the flank.
Yeah.
Just he didn't get it all, and he needed to wait for it, so he took a shot in the foot and says nothing, and of course, and win the buckle. I ended up giving him the buckle because his toe was broken. So.
Yeah.
And just to win Pinoca twice, 2 in a row, like 3 CFRs, to get a Canadian championship, like my favorite buckle. You know, like it's got a special place in my heart up here, and just all the friends and I don't know. It's for whatever reason you can go ride the rankest horse in Canada, and then you just end up sitting in a parking lot or sitting around camp
Yeah,
and telling stories and having beers with everybody, and like it's just a yeah, it's a
some good
special
camaraderie.
special place up here for
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome. I know you said that you're kind of just rolling like going to a few rodeos up here, seeing where it's going, but I want to get your perspective on the CFR is going back to Edmonton for the 50th year. What does that mean? Like, how exciting is that to you to have the chance to compete up there again?
I've not stopped. I won't say that I haven't looked at the books and see what it would take to get there because that's awesome, and
Yeah.
changing the format a little bit, um, which I think is great. Like, and
one less horse, more money at the
obviously
same time
less horse, more money
in Rogers.
in Rogers.
Hell yeah.
That part got me. I was like, ooh, I don't know. I love the Oilers.
Oh, come on.
No, I think it's awesome, but I think that's all contributing to what you're seeing in the sport altogether. Like whether it's down south or it is up here, like that's where rodeo's headed. Those big stages, that kind of money. That do these guys really need to ride 6, or can we ride 5 and have a better show? Because we will.
Yes, 100%.
But like we're creating a product here.
Yeah,
and I think it's really turning into that, and that's just going to make things even better.
Awesome. Oh, man, it's exciting and what's one last thing before we wrap up here? What's the goal list for 2024? What's kind of some of the obviously making the finals, but is there like one specific thing you have, a specific rodeo you want to win, or what's that all look like?
I want like at least 7 stakes from Keenan Hayes.
That's a good one.
If I accomplish that, I might have a gold buckle.
Yeah, right. Know? Yeah, that's true. Actually,
that's kind of the goal. Yeah. No, I it's hard to. Well, as Paige always says, you don't get to choose when it happens. You can do all the right things and put in the work, but you don't get to say when and where. And so I'm leaving myself open to wherever those places are and trying to get that gold buckle.
Oh man, well, I really appreciate you squeezing me in today. I know you got a busy hanging out days in Ponoka.
It's been rough.
Oh man, it's been really good to catch up, and I wish you all the best. And we'll be hanging out here the rest of the few days. But anyways, we'll leave it at that, and we'll catch you on the other side. Thanks, Richie.
Thanks, Wacey.
Okay, cheers, buddy. Alrighty, welcome back to the show. Thanks once again to Richie Champion for taking the time to chat with me. That was Richie's one of my favorite people. He's such a good dude. Great positive attitude, and again, good to see him back in Canada. Okay, we forgot to mention this. I was talked about the short round bump, but we kind of glanced over it in our first half there. But shout out to Brody Beasley. He won Sundry, won Wainwright last weekend. He's currently sitting first in Ponoka, so. I'm not gonna say it, but I'm gonna say that there might be a bit of a short round bump situation happening with old Brody Beasley. So hats off to him. Okay. So like we mentioned at the top of the show, we're like right in the thick of Cowboy Christmas, and we have rodeos ending, rodeos starting, all this kind of stuff. One rodeo that wrapped up would have been earlier this week is the Midnight Days Pro Rodeo in Fort Macleod. It was the first time Fort Macleod's hosted a pro rodeo in over 40 years, I think it is now. So it's good to as we just want to send a big congratulations out to that committee for making it happen. It looked like there were some good rides, good runs. And yeah, Clay, you got any notes for us on the old Midnight Pro Rodeo?
You know, it was really cool. I got to watch they have their Pro Rodeo Sports Roundup show on the Cowboy Channel, and they had interviewed Clint Weston, the committee head there, and just how it kind of came to be. Again, just that idea that this year is the 150th anniversary of the town of Fort Macleod, and they just wanted to do something with the Ag Society. They had a big agriculture show going on there, and there's a lot of events going on this weekend. But between the other events going on in the town, as well as all the other rodeos that were already going on, they decided the Tuesday, Wednesday just worked a lot better for them to go with, and it looks like it didn't hurt their crowds. Looked like they had a great deal, and they literally redid the entire arena and rebuilt everything for this year, because that arena's been around a long time. It's named after the famous old saddle bronc horse Midnight that come from Fort Macleod, and that's where the name of the rodeo kind of came from. But they wanted to make sure that it was again set up in a way that was going to work well for the all of the events and be something that they can be proud of and host even more events going forward. So
Mhm.
really kudos to that whole crew and moving forward. I know it'll be a little bit easier that they've got the arena built and it'll be minor tweaks. So
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing too. I wanted to shout out them again for I saw a lot of cowboys and cowgirls who had competed there over the last few days. Shout them out on social media saying how they appreciate having the opportunity to compete on a Tuesday and a Wednesday during this time of year because it's so hard to when you have only rodeos on the weekends. Makes it so tough to juggle everything. So again, shout out to them for pulling it together. I think it's going to be a great event. If you want to go watch it back, it's on the Cowboy Channel Plus app, so you can go check out all the action for the Midnight Days Pro Rodeo. All right, Clay, we're gonna I guess talk about the elephant in the room. I guess not really elephant in the room. The elephant just outside my door. I can still hear Megan Patrick playing on the main stage over there. But the old Pinoca Stampede in full force. It's been quite an interesting. I not even an interesting start. It's not the way to say it, but just like a. I feel like something's brewing. Like we haven't really had our big moment that's gonna be like, oh my God, like this is like you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to say, like there hasn't been like a 90-point ride or like there hasn't been a crazy fast team roping run or barrel racing run yet. But I feel like there's something about being in this arena, which you know, Clay. There's something's brewing as we get into the weekend. As more of the big dogs roll through, as this rain that we had today goes away, I feel like there's gonna be some fireworks as we head into the weekend.
oh, for sure. And you know, I think Pinoca does a good job of sometimes saving those real big moments for Monday
Yeah.
on that final day. It's when I look back, I was fortunate enough to have one year where I made it through to the 4 round and you can't beat that experience.
Mhm.
There's just something to be said about that build up of okay, what do I got in the 12 round? How can I make this go forward and everything like that? And again, like to just see the the growth of that rodeo year over year, the facilities that they keep expanding and growing. I mean, shoot, I was talking to somebody today and I was like, oh, I didn't really expect Pinoca to be on the TV or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, what
It's
road? If it's not, then which
quite a
rodeos
rodeo.
are?
It is one of the biggest rodeos in the world now. Like you can't deny it, like with based on added money, based on the facilities, like it is so cool. One thing I wanted to mention, like one thing that like kind of solidifies that for me, I was in the elevator at the hotel here, going back up to my room this morning, and I ran into this group of folks from Hamilton, Ontario, and they had traveled to Alberta 4 years ago to do a trip to Calgary, Banff, all that place, stumbled on the Pinoca Stampede. Now they've been back 4 years in a row. And they come just for Pinoca. So it's a kind of a neat thing just to see the reach that it has and the impact it has on people, the impression it has on people. And yeah, like you say, to what it's grown to at this point. And I think it's only going to continue to grow. It's such a great event. And even today was pouring rain, like torrential downpour rain from like the bareback riding on to the rodeo. And there was still like a whole bunch of people sticking it out watching the rodeo. So nothing else like Pinoca.
Yeah, I had an aunt and uncle that actually they had posted the zebra act
Oh,
on
and the one armed bandit, dude.
yeah,
One bandit is.
yeah,
Okay, well, I'll talk about it after, but yeah, keep
for
going.
sure. But then I realized, holy, they're there. But again, that big grandstand on the north side, I mean, it's covered and protected so well. I mean, once you're in there, you're good. It's just
Yeah.
the getting out of the car and getting to the car.
Oh man. Well, I think they postponed the wagon stand. I think this is the first time they've done it in a very long time. So they got it dialed in over there. But yeah, the funny you mentioned the one armed bandit. It's so funny because like there's not like if you really boil down his act, there's like not a whole lot to it, but what there is to it is like so badass at the same time. So it's like it's just so impressive to watch that guy. And if you didn't know where he was, I know he's from like originally from Oklahoma, but he lives in Florida now. But if you didn't know that, like you could just like watch them like this guy is from Florida. Like it's just the most Florida of rodeo acts of them all.
Yeah, you're surprised he didn't bring a gator to jump out of
Yeah,
there in the
no
middle of
doubt. Hey, yeah. Next thing you know, there's a gator on top of his trailer there. But no, it's cool. They really drive home the entertainment value in Old Pinoca. And I think as we move through the week, like you say, we get closer to that Monday short round. It's just going to be get bigger and bigger. I wanted to ask you, as you were talking about the time you were in the 4 round, what horse did you get on in the 4 round? Tell the story about that.
So I was excited about the long round horse as anything, because it was a kind of an awesome, almost like feeling or like hope of knowing it's like, okay, this is Kessler's Pen, and that Starburst horse is just really cool. I sure wish I'd draw that. And sure enough, you do callbacks and you get that horse. And so then, yeah, make a good enough ride to get into the 12 round. Uh, just rode good enough. I mean, tough to get through there. And then drew a horse of Vold's called Atomic Betty, and yeah, I ended up splitting second, third there, and everything. But yeah, it was just that show is something else. And my one traveling partner at the time, Delano Jost, he had won both the long round and the 12 round that day there, and so both of us getting in there, we were young guys, like first or second year with a card, or he
Yeah.
was he was still on his permit at the time,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And so yeah, we both got on a bit of a heater there. Was a pretty good stretch. And yeah, if it wouldn't have been for that rodeo, I wouldn't have made my one and only CFR in the Open. So it was, yeah, it definitely and again, just it's a rodeo. There's a lot of other things happening and everything like that, but when you compare it, say, to Calgary Stampede, the rodeo is at the heart of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing you can always look back on
Beauty of it,
and
yeah.
hold true. So it's always cool to think about it that way.
One last thing before we move on from the Pinocchio stuff, Clay. We need to talk about Rocker Steiner and Virgil. I feel like, and like, I'm not like, there's no slight. We're not trying to talk any smack or anything, but it was just, I felt like there was so much hype around every rodeo association, every rodeo news outlet was talking about, oh, Rocker versus Virgil. I can only, and I know that Rocker's built for this kind of stuff. He brings it on himself. He's kind of like that personality in rodeo, but he had to have been feeling the heat a little bit more just because of all that, like all of the extra stuff that was coming from that matchup.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, the thing with Virgil is, and I had talked to Kate Saunier there last fall doing the interviews and article for the stock of the year, and Kate had gotten on Virgil at Pinoca last year as well as Calgary, and he talked about how it was a completely different trip. I mean, Pinoca last year, I mean, depending if again, if he sticks his head out over there, or if he puts his head down in the bottom of the chute, it's a completely different ball of wax when you nod your head. And again, Virgil probably remembered Rocker. I mean, that
He
that
put
horse,
that in there.
I don't put it past him to say, it worked last time. But I mean, Rocker is an incredible talent. He can ride really well, but Virgil is something too.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so yeah, he almost got himself sat back down, but Virgil's like, okay, yeah, nope, sorry about your luck.
it's funny because like going like I guess you haven't had a chance to listen to the interview yet, Clay, but uh Richie talks about there's two different Virgils, an angry Virgil and happy Virgil. If you happy Virgil, it's usually gonna work out okay. Angry Virgil not is gonna make your life a living hell. So looks to be that Rocker got an angry Virgil on Tuesday. But I just want to talk about it a little bit because a lot of people are hyping it up and you know what? Even though Rocker got bucked off, it still provided a great amount of entertainment and good conversation around the rodeos. So, anyways, I think that'll do it for our Pinoca chit chat for now. We'll catch up on Sunday and kind of recap things as we head into Monday's final. So a few other rodeos we got on the schedule to kind of take us through the midway point of Cowboy Christmas. We got the Williams Lake Stampede starting tomorrow. I guess it would be today when the show comes out. And then the Airdrie Pro Rodeo and the Raymond Stampede kind of wrapping up the Canada Day long weekend. What do you got for us over these few rodeos, Clay? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, so again, Williams Lake, you don't really want to sleep on that one. I mean, again, it's a tour rodeo as
Banger.
well, and I think it's up to 15 added in all the major events. And I mean, they brought in C5 Rodeo this year as their main contractor, changed things up a little bit, but
Mhm.
still have the Duffy string out there as well. And again, they got four perfs a rodeo. It's going to be a lot of good action out there, and I mean, it's a bit of a hike out that way, but it can
Worth
work out
it.
for a lot of people.
Such a beautiful set. I like. maybe I'm a little bit biased from living in that part of the world for over a year, but it's a beautiful. It's fun to get to go out there and hang out and good to see a little bit different landscape, even though it's a bit deserty up there. But it's good
For
to.
sure, yeah. I know that rodeo grounds, the stand up on kind of the hill and everything. I can honestly say I don't think I ever left Williams Lake making a dime, but I've had fun there. I can say there was a couple of times there where actually Carey Price, he was good friends with the Call family. He's from up around there and
Mhm.
everything, and I got to meet him up there a
Cool.
couple of years and actually got to go to the dance with him there with the crew of people
Dance
up
with
there.
Carey Price.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the thing was, is I mean, again, Gary Price is such a low key guy when you get him out in public. I mean, he was dressed in his regular cowboy gear, and he's not out to be the oh
No.
I'm here the big hockey player. I mean, nobody that didn't know him would know who he'd be, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and just a super nice guy and yeah, like the Williams Lake crew out there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that that mountain race. Boy, it's 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 full blown entertainment and action and I saw they've got a freestyle motocross show going on there on the Friday and I actually got to see a show like that here in my hometown a couple weeks ago
You guys
and
are
that
nuts, dude.
yeah, somebody doing a flip on a skidoo in the summertime, it's something else.
That doesn't make any sense, but it's crazy.
It doesn't, but it's still really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome, man. Well, and I guess looking at Airdrie and Raymond here, a cool note you had written down in the rough stock events, the committee's paid the fees for all the guys coming through this weekend. So that's a really cool note coming from the Airdrie rodeo. But that's another like I feel like it's a Canada Day staple on the schedule for everybody. It's a cool rodeo, really cool rodeo grounds. There's usually been some big moments come through there. It's another kind of a you looking across the board on all these. You got with Airdrie, how cool it is. Raymond is a cool like historic type rodeo. So it's going to be an exciting finish to the Canada Day weekend for our rodeo competitors.
For sure. And you know, I was looking at the schedule and again you get thinking, okay, this is a year where in order for Pinoca to I mean, they would have win on they always go on the first as well. They'll stretch
Yeah.
out how they have to, but it ends up being the Monday and so you've got your short round on that day and having three other rodeos with performances that day as well kind of can be a little bit of a troublemaker for people having to turn out of rodeos but kudos to the CPRA the last couple of years for leaving the trades available until Thursday. So basically, half of the cowboys and cowgirls kind of know where they sit in Pinoca, so
Hmm.
you can kind of move things around and make it so everybody can get to all of their rodeos the best they can, and whether you're making it in Pinoca and you need to get a swap or you know you didn't have as good of a trip there and so you can then go somewhere on that Monday. That goes a long ways for a lot of contestants this time of year because you don't want to pass up a lot of that big money at those other rodeos and turn out. So I thought that was kind of a neat little thing
Yeah.
to find out.
Yeah, it's good to have that availability, like you say, being able. There's so many rodeos going on and so many different directions contestants are trying to go that having that availability just makes it more accessible for everybody. So again, yeah, hats off to our employers for making it happen. All right, Clay, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this week. I don't know if you anything else that I missed or anything that we need to get through before we send everybody off into the long weekend.
No, for sure. I think again, it's just great to see again this many rodeos. I mean, there used to be more. I remember hearing cowboys staying back in the 70s and 80s. You had Swift Current on this weekend. You had Meadow Lake. Like
Yep.
you were going everywhere in every direction, and it was crazy to think of that many rodeos. But again, the fact that we're drawing in more rodeos, bringing Raymond in as a pro rodeo, again, getting Fort McLeod back after I think they had said it was 1981 was the last year they had pro rodeo there. So it's just
Yeah.
just seeing that these committees and these ag societies around are looking at this and saying, you know what, this is an event that I think is worthwhile for our communities, and they're getting behind it and seeing a great turnout. So it's just awesome to see.
Yeah, I think we're in a good state with pro rodeo as a whole, and that's a good way to summarize it, Clay. But if you want to keep up with what's going on throughout the weekend, obviously head over to rodeocanada.com. We'll be posting updates on social media. There'll be the news you can use will be easy to find for you, but stay with that. That's the best way to stay up to date with what we got going on. And I guess that's gonna wrap it up. We're gonna send it off, and we'll see you for episode 17, the short round. I'm your host, Wacey Anderson, for my buddy Clay Creasy, and we'll catch you all down the trail.